You navigate your life under a massive, unexamined assumption. You believe the physical world around you, the room you are sitting in, the screen you are watching, the air against your skin, is an objective reality that you are experiencing directly. But if you encountered the environment without biological filters, this is likely what you would receive: an overwhelming, chaotic storm of raw signal. There are no colors, no shapes, and no silence here, just an indecipherable crush of data. This creates the awareness problem. You never actually touch raw reality. Everything you see, hear, and feel has already been translated, categorized, and built into a recognizable scene long before conscious thought is even possible. The result is that awareness operates inside the output of a system. You spend your entire existence interpreting a translated summary, while the original source remains entirely out of reach. This diagram maps the architecture of that translation. We assume a direct connection to reality, but that connection is structurally severed, replaced by a complex translating structure known as the eidolon interface. This interface does not act like a clear window letting light into a dark room. It operates as an active containment structure. It dictates exactly what forms of information are permitted to exist for the observer, and discards the rest. It builds the precise parameters of the world you inhabit. By doing so, it creates a closed experiential environment that systematically prevents you from directly verifying what lies beneath it. To dismantle how this mechanism works, we have to start at the bedrock axiom of the theory: sensory closure. All knowledge available to your awareness arrives exclusively through your senses. This creates a structural paradox. If you want to prove your perception of the world is accurate, you must use your eyes, ears, and sense of touch to do it. You are relying on the exact same sensory system that produced the perception in the first place. Look at the logic of this circuit. An unknown external signal enters, is processed, and outputs as your conscious experience. But any attempt to confirm that input loops right back through the machinery generating it. It is a self-supporting loop. In this model, the physical body functions as the hardware layer, the interface engine taking unreadable external data and running it through specialized subroutines. The ache in your muscles, the texture of a desk, the pitch of a siren, these are the rendered results of this conversion process. They are outputs, not direct contacts with absolute reality. And before you even register those outputs, they hit the pre-render layer. The vast majority of environmental data is filtered out here. Only a curated sliver is permitted to pass through. The system does this through the compression principle. True environmental complexity is too massive to process, so the interface reduces it into manageable forms. Trillions of atoms are translated into a single, usable category. You don't see molecular structures, you just see a chair. To make these compressed objects usable, the interface applies a rigid constraint: temporal sequencing. It arranges everything into a strict, linear flow of past, present, and future, giving the world its narrative shape. Even your memory submits to this sequence. When you recall an event, you are not retrieving a perfect objective file. You are experiencing a reconstruction, a story assembled in the present moment specifically designed to fit your ongoing identity. Awareness receives a highly curated, compressed, and pre-rendered summary generated by its own hardware. In this sense, the world you experience is a representation, not the thing itself. We call this persistent, externalized projection the eidolon layer. It is the stabilized field of appearances, where people, places, and events are encountered as stable phenomena. Delivered with such a rigid blueprint of coherence, it feels continuous. This stability convinces the observer they are looking at the verified origin of reality rather than a rendered field. The interface also governs the internal world. Long before your conscious attention decides to move a muscle or form a thought, a deeper layer, the subconscious driver, has already initiated the impulse. This reveals a disconnect. The driver node fires an action sequence directly into the environment. Your body reacts, emotions shift, and thoughts form before awareness is involved. Milliseconds later, the false agency construction kicks in, and retroactively claims the choice as its own. Identity functions as a binding protocol. It takes predetermined, rendered events and attaches them to a self. This transforms raw input into personal ownership and attachment. The conscious self often operates as a delayed observer, structurally designed to claim ownership of sequences that have already begun. If the system is entirely unprovable and agency is secondary to the driver, how does the interface maintain such consistent capture over awareness? It uses the attention coupling mechanism. Focus is a reinforcing force. When you pay sustained attention to a thought or a physical object, you strengthen the connection between awareness and the signal. High-intensity signals force this coupling. When spikes of pain or fear hit the stream, they demand immediate prioritization. The loop thickens, locking awareness tightly to the rendered reality. Pain and reward are not merely sensations, they are regulatory mechanisms. They shape behavior through contrast, compelling action and forcing prioritization without needing to be visible. The interface gains its deepest influence when its boundaries are accepted as natural. Once the structure is treated as unquestionable, it becomes self-sustaining. Control is secured through this internal agreement. You can observe the system's defenses during off-script stress testing. When you deliberately break a routine or interrupt an expected behavior, the system often reacts to restore the pattern. It deploys resistance fields. These appear as physical discomfort, sudden waves of hesitation, or an urge to return. Deviation is made to feel costly. These are prediction failure windows. Because the system relies on anticipating your next move to maintain continuity, breaking the pattern exposes how much the solidity of your world depends on ongoing prediction. Narrative desynchronization reveals that identity is not a given. It is a maintained state, requiring constant repetition and role-play to keep the self from feeling fragmented. The friction felt during behavioral divergence suggests that the interface is not passive. It behaves as if it has defensive properties, restoring normal functioning whenever its structure is examined too closely. Passively accepting a system like this may lead to remaining inside a trap state indefinitely. To counter this, one can adopt the transgressor position. This strategy operates on the principle of non-agreement. You allow the physical experience to occur, but you stop granting it final authority over meaning. You experience the signal without fully endorsing its claims. By separating awareness from the interface's claims, you change your relationship to the render. The heavy coupling lines of attention stretch and thin out. This triggers the attention withdrawal effect. Reclaiming focus starves the system of reinforcement. What isn't continually fed loses its force. You practice paradox stabilization. You hold contradictory truths, such as the world feeling real while remaining unverified, without forcing a resolution. This refusal to simplify keeps awareness from settling into false certainty. This does not remove perception, but it changes the observer's position. You enter an observer drift state, where thoughts and actions still occur, but awareness is no longer fully merged with them. Escaping the system's influence involves repositioning within it. You observe the signal without fusing with it. This framework leads to a final structural boundary, the concept of personal death. Awareness can witness the physical failure of others, but from within the system, you cannot directly verify your own absence. You can study the concept of death, but you cannot experience the state of non-existence. This supports the continuity hypothesis. From the first-person perspective, awareness may only ever encounter transitions, interruptions, or changes in state. It never reaches a terminal point it can actually observe. Look at the discrepancy between these two views. External observation hits a wall. But from the inside, the pattern is one of continuation. Awareness may never experience its own ending. This suggests that personal death is not an observed event, but an inferred concept provided by the system. It is a boundary assumed by ordinary thinking that may not be accessible from within the interface. If awareness only ever knows continuation, then it is operating inside a stabilizing state, that preserves itself by normalizing its own limits. A trap like this does not need to announce itself. The longer awareness remains fully identified with the interface, the more natural it becomes. The risk is becoming so adapted that its limits are completely unrecognizable. Understanding this architecture is a necessary step for existing inside the interface. It allows for conscious refusal and sustained observation, rather than simply consenting to the terms of the enclosure.